Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The SPA in Spa Life, the SPA, stands for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your greater work in the world. Well, I am so inspired to have our next guest on the show, Craig Brown, who has served as the recovery pastor and director of Celebrate. I want to say celebrity. I feel like we should have that out there, right? To celebrate
You're
recovery.
the celebrity.
There is a celebrity in that, right? Celebrity of God. So he's the recovery pastor and director of Celebrate Recovery at Church of the Redeemer in Gaithersburg, Maryland, since 1999. And his 20 plus years as a recovery pastor, he has helped thousands of people, including business owners and professional leaders, to find the healing and freedom from shame in Christ that delivers us from pain, guilt, and shame. Craig is a public speaker and author. He is a former radio local sales manager at Salem Communications at WAVA 105.1 FM. And Craig lives in the Washington, D.C. area with his wife and 3 sons. Craig, welcome to the show.
Diane, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to just jump in here. I know that you talk about that your habits and your rituals are around just growing spiritually and also growing closer to your family. And with so many things that are happening in the world, I'd love for us to touch on fear, on what are some of the strategies that you do around fear. I love how you talk about that there's no fear in the name of the Lord. And so how do you use that as a foundation and tenet for yourself and for the people that you're helping?
Well, one thing I tell everyone that I've had the privilege of helping is that everything, this is just not only people in recovery, but all of us, everything we've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Everything.
Yeah.
Fear is just a major obstacle. It always has been. And it's inhibiting. It can take us off track. It could keep us from achieving our goals, our dreams. People, believe it or not, I know in business, people have a fear of success. They get to a certain level and then they're afraid to go to that next level for a number of different reasons. But the thing about fear is, for me personally, and what I share with others, is that you have to admit it's there. The Bible says you can't heal a wound by saying it's not there. Well, fear is there. It's presented itself. Okay. And the best thing is to have an action plan. It's there. I recognize it. I identify it. And because I know that, because I'm feeling a certain way. As far as my emotions or my safeguards that I have, or my boundaries are being pushed right now. And people deal with it in a lot of different ways. A lot of people will run the other way. And then those of us that have been to the pit of hell and back and have experience in getting over it, will run through it, and we'll work through it. So it's about embracing it. Fear can be a beautiful motivator if it's handled in a very healthy way. And the same with pain. Pain is an amazing catalyst if it's handled in a certain way. So for me personally, I have my own that I deal with. It's about identifying, recognizing, and having an action plan. And a lot of times it's going back and looking, how did I overcome that before?
Right.
What did I do? What steps did I take to overcome that the last time? Now, life is ever changing. A lot is not exactly the same. So what worked then could work now, but then I may have to build and add other components of that in order to take me to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to look back and see where have we been successful in the past, right? Because when we see that we've overcome something before, it's a good stepping stone to be able to go, okay, I can get through this. I've done hard things, right? And sometimes when we're in hard things, it's hard to recognize that there are actually those steps stairs to get there and to be able to look that. And, particularly over like the last year with the pandemic and fears, some are irrational at this point, some of them, it doesn't matter what they are, the people feel them. It's just, there's so many different levels of what that is. And a lot of people can feel out of control. So I'd love to kind of look at your book, because you address this quite a bit, where you mention a friend of yours, Adam, who dulled his pain with a mysterious illness with alcohol. And how do you counsel people struggling with issues where they feel that, they're outside of things are outside of their control, that they don't feel in control of their life?
Well, that's just it. It's a false reality. When you're dealing with tough stuff and tough things, especially people in recovery or people dealing with pain, shame, guilt, addiction, it's a false reality. Oh, I got this. Oh, I can control this. And it's like, and then you have those of us that are caregivers and people helpers on the outside going, yeah, no, I've been there. I had that very same attitude. And let me just, with truth and grace, the truth is, no, you don't have it under control. The grace is, there is a path, a Christ-centered path that you can follow in order to be set free and develop a healthy lifestyle again. And so, Adam, there are other stories in the book that I share my own personal experience too, and just self-medicating, how to medicate the pain, how to medicate the fear, the shame, and the failure. And people do that on a regular basis. There's nothing new about that. In the garden in Genesis chapter 3, Adam and Eve, what's the first thing they felt when they were busted? Shame, right? So shame comes from the pit of hell, and that's where it began, and it hasn't gone away, and it's used to keep really good people from going to the places where they need to heal. And people become inhibited, and it's because of the shame and the pain. They have to medicate. And it's not just alcohol, it's pornography and food and sugar and codependency and all these other things to detach, to thinking they're controlling it. But no, the first step in any recovery is admit I'm powerless. Mm-hmm. I can't control my tendency to do the wrong thing. And then we turn to a power greater than us who can take control, but giving up the control is the hardest part.
Right. Well, a lot of times when people are in that place of, we hear that they hit rock bottom, or, they don't feel worthy, or there's all these things that happen. And, people talk about, in your book, you talk about, suffering loves company. And of course we hear misery loves company. I mean, it's all of that, just like that worst of it seems like you're in a bad space and you find other people who are in a bad space and who it is that you're spending time with, right? We know, about who you spend time with is who you start having their actions, their characteristics, and people can feel alone when they're in those places. So how is it that people can find a loving community to help them through their pain, to not enable them, but to actually help them feel accountable as well?
Yeah, well, accountability is a beautiful thing. It really, really is. And when we're struggling, we don't want any accountability. We don't want anybody telling us what to do. We're tired of people telling us what to do. We're tired. We have unhealthy people a lot of times in our lives thinking they can fix us and change us. So it shouldn't come as a surprise for people that are reluctant to enter into a safe environment, with safe people, trusted people that have empathy, that understand, that have been to the valley and back and are there to help. That's why I love Christ-centered recovery so much, and I've been in it for 22 years in that capacity of giving back and sharing and being, transparent, being vulnerable, and with really good, healthy boundaries. You see, people that are struggling we have no structure. We have that false reality I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. We have preconceived notions based on fear, shame, that what are they going to think of me when I walk in the door? Will I receive condemnation? And Diane, you know how many times I've been told I should have been here 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? Yeah. And that's where fear comes in, fear and shame, and the first chapter of my book is when the pain is greater than our fear, we will begin to change.
Right.
When the pain is greater than your fear, for your listeners, for instance, whoever is really, really struggling, you will begin to want to change when the pain is greater than your fear of opening up and sharing and being
Right.
transparent with other people. But the best thing you can ever do is to step out of isolation, step out of hiding, and find, which there are thousands of them all over the country, safe places with really good people
Right.
whose motivation is to help you, and be there for you, pray for you, support you, bring healthy accountability, and help you on that road to recovery.
Right. I like how you talk about is just that asking for help. I mean, I think there's something that has kind of
Hard to
evolved
do.
into the society where people feel like, well, I can figure it out on my own, or I'll figure it out on my own, or I don't want to bother other people, or they don't understand my unique situation, or, there's so many different things that come up with that. I mean, as I'm a retired police officer on the street, I've heard a lot of different things that people would say and do and not realize that they are literally like one phone call or one person away from stepping into that. And how do you address, there's sometimes can be a fine line between helping someone and being accountable and enabling someone. How do you kind of address that dance?
That's a good one. Wow, it's a good one. Let me answer your first one about having a hard time asking for help. I use this example a lot. I don't know if you shop online or if you ever go into stores. Do you ever go to shop and you're looking at clothes and things, and you have that person that comes up and they're very kind, they're very, wanting to be helpful. They always come up and say, "Can I help you?" And what's our first reaction?
No, I'm just looking.
That's the same.
Yes.
The same for every situation in our life.
Right.
Same thing. And I am looking for 42 long. I'm looking for 38 long, or, I'm looking. Yes, I don't know where it is. I want your help. I want your help. But why is it my first reaction is to say no? Why is our first reaction? But that's human nature.
Right.
For those of us that came up really growing ourselves up and being on our own and kind of, finding our own way, we didn't know how to ask for help.
Right.
And when we did, we were probably shamed. When we did, we were probably made to feel stupid. When we did, we were, it was just a crummy cycle. And naturally, no, I don't want any help. So yes, taking that first step to say, I need help. And that's generally, Diane, when the pain is greater than someone's fear.
Right.
All right. Now, on the help side, oh my goodness, there's just not enough time. But I've just seen it over so many years, and it's one of the hardest part is seeing family members trying to help someone else.
Right.
And they think they're doing the right thing. They're trying to do the right thing. And one of the hardest things that really hurts my heart the most is our parents, really sweet, loving, kind parents, and they've done everything for their child. I'm dealing with that situation actually now. And parents think they're helping, but a lot of times they're just hurting. And sometimes I just have to tell them, get out of the way.
Right.
Hardest thing I ever do, get out of the way.
It's that
And
tough
it's not
love.
it's not your fault, parent. They had a choice. Your son or daughter or loved one, husband or wife, they have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And they've chosen whatever it is, right?
Right.
To totally wreck their life, your marriage, your family, whatever it is, right? It's their decision. You've done everything you possibly can. Yes, financially, housing, caring, loving, but sometimes you just have to draw the line and have real good, healthy boundaries and set conditions and say, that's it. And it's the hardest thing, Diane, for people to do. On the other side, helping is like in our recovery ministry, we're not there to fix you. You can come and go anytime you please. You can do whatever you believe. We're not going to force you to do anything. It's your choice ultimately. But I will say that after people stay in that environment for a while, because they are sensing the love, the unconditional love, acceptance for who they are, and they feel horrible about themselves, but they got people around them that have felt the same way. And we're like, I understand. I understand the pit you've been in, the darkness you felt, the depression you felt. I get it. I get it. And it's a whole different environment for people. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just have, and again, I'm not codependent enough that I think I can help that. Even with my experience, I draw the line. And now people ask me, say, how do you go home at night, or how do you deal with life and I've been through so many life and death situations and overdoses and burials and other things. And I said, well, over time you develop really good healthy boundaries.
Right.
And I can't. The Bible is very clear about sharing the burden, caring for them in their burden, but not taking it from them.
Right. Right.
They
That's
may
part of their path and what it is that they do. And I know that when, I'm consulting with people, one of the things I always talk about is I only consult the willing, right? And
right,
I
absolutely,
can't want it more for them than they want it for themselves. And so
right.
people have to have a certain amount of like skin in the game, if you will. And I think this is what happens with families, whether it's parents or whatever, and why they're too close to it to be able to help people is, they've probably been played in some ways, right? There's
Oh,
strategies and there's,
manipulated, lied
because they
to.
love their child, they don't want to have anything bad happen to them. And there's so many things with that. And when they get pulled out of those environments and they've got someone who can kind of see them for who they are and speak into that, it comes from a much different perspective. And, again, we've seen so many emotions that people have felt with, life being very different in the last couple of years, people not anticipating things like shelter at home and mask and freedoms literally being taken away, where talk about being out of control. There's a lot of things. And, suicides at an all-time high, child abuse, domestic violence, all of these things with people are under a pressure cooker of all the things
Yes.
that have happened, way more things to, psychotic and well-being and all of these things that have been way more impactful than a virus, right? This is an internal
Absolutely.
virus of your heart and of your connection with people. So people have gone through being sad and depressed and all these different things, but there's also another aspect in terms of anger, right? There's anger
Oh,
that
yeah,
pops up with
absolutely.
people. And in your book you share the story about Jose, who talks about what was at the root of his anger and how he moved from, I love how you call him a leader on the mend. And I'd love you
Yes.
to speak
Yeah.
into how he was able to find his freedom from rage, because that is, we know that rage, there's underlying fear, there's other things that are associated with that one. But when a person's at a point of rage, there can feel this sense of out of control, and that you literally can't get a grasp on that. So how
Right.
do you deal with that?
Well, me personally, or just overall in ministry.
Well, let's do both. Let's do yourself personally, like when
Well,
you hit that, and then and ministry as well.
well, all of us, all of us deal with anger to
Yes.
a degree. It's a common denominator that runs through all of us, just to whatever degree. And anger is a symptom. Anger is a symptom of something at a very, very deeper level, and that could come from abuse of the past, trauma of the past, major, divorce. I've seen that a lot in people, and especially all people, all ages. It was traumatic, and they were angry at one of the parents. They're angry, blaming themselves. There's so many different reasons, for that, and it's a symptom on the surface. We choose it because we feel good about that. Some people are just naturally grumpy. They're just angry at the world, and there's nothing you can do to soothe them, or it's just ingrained in them. But that's their choice,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so it is a choice. Anger is a choice. And I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I subscribe to, if someone says to me, for instance, Diane, you make me so angry, and my response is, I haven't heard that, by the way, in a very long time, and my response is, no, you're choosing to get angry.
Right.
That's your choice. It's a choice. So maybe what I said or did, or my approach or attitude wasn't that great, and I'll take responsibility for that.
Right.
But I didn't make you feel that. That is the emotion that came to the surface as a result of what I was doing or
Right.
what I did. But anger is something, Jose is a great story. I mean, he was just able to process. I remember seeing him at church, and he came to one of the first meetings at another campus of ours, and he was just broken. And And as a result, he just came in and was, again, it's about being honest with it. Kind of like you started the show with fear. What about it? You have to recognize it. You had to recognize that anger was a major issue in his life. It was hurting his marriage and his relationship with his kids. And that happens all the time with folks. So what he did was he entered in, he got into Christ-centered recovery, and he was able to pull back the layers of his life and his heart and find that there were some real deep rooted hurts that he had never dealt with before. And as a result, he was able to deal with them, bring them to the surface, allow the Lord to heal and restore. And over time, the rage went away, and the overall anger symptom was able to subside, and he was able to mend a lot of different relationships that he had hurt.
Right.
So
right, absolutely.
it's there's something, and that's for practically all the symptoms that we're struggling with in life. There's something there, and recovery is beautiful because and God's word is very, very clear that you just pull back the layers of that heart, and it's about a mindset as well, and changing the way we think about ourselves, about situations, about other people, about our past, and it can all be done and healed.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think that it's important that I think when someone is actually in anger in the moment, they can't necessarily hear the words that are being said to them. So to be able to move them through that fear, because fear, when you're in fear or anger, which is just the extremity of it, that's like the hotness of it, you're not using a logical mind, right? That's kind of your entrapment in some way, right? You're just feeling like you can't get out of it. And so to move somebody out of the anger in the moment situation, to get them to a more logical conversation, to be able to breathe, to be able to be present, to be able to respond, right? There's all of these things that need to have happen. Yeah. I love that once you kind of get them to that base point, to have that conversation around it's a choice, because I agree with you that it absolutely is a choice. But when you're in it, they're like, what do you mean it's a choice?
No.
Like they don't see it in the moment, right?
You can't rationalize. You cannot rationalize with anything when they're in the midst of it. The rage, the addiction, the relapse. There's no reasoning. Right. And this is where it's like timeout. All right, timeout here. We have to let's go to our corners, or, let's just take a break here and allow some time for you to, for us to emotions subside and feelings subside and attitudes change. And then we can deal with that on a rational way. It's very hard to talk to anybody or try to reason with anybody that's in the midst of it.
Right.
Very difficult.
Well,
I call it past the point of no return.
Yes.
When that happened, that sequence begins, and it's like, oh, sorry, that rocket took off, man. There's no going back.
So you're gonna ding ding, go to your corner.
Yeah, we have to wait. We're gonna have to wait for this to be done and over with, and then let's deal with it.
Right. Well, and part of that conversation in terms of being at choice is responsibility, right? And to teach people that you have 100% responsibility for what you're choosing, for how you're living your life, what you're doing, because so often, people can go into the blame and shame that it's everybody else, it's even things that are going on in the world right now, right? To make it an external thing, no matter what's going out here. It's one of the reasons when I talk about the show about, seek power always, that power within you have to go, you have to access, God, your wisdom, yourself, and then you make choice from that. If you live in the noise and the chaos that's happening out here, you're never going to arrive to that choice or that responsibility or what it is that you're doing. So I love that that's part of the process, is to have people get to that point, to have that conversation around choice and around responsibility. And I'd love to talk to you more about, a lot of times, why do people advise against identifying as an addict? Because a lot of times that is a first step in programs, is to be honest and to identify as that. But where are you at with that as far as someone actually identifying as an addict?
I don't believe in it. I haven't for 22 years, and I'll tell you why. if someone identifies themselves as an addict, if someone identifies themselves as an alcoholic, there's so much stigma attached to each and every one of those.
Right.
Okay. Labels. We put labels on our identity. Our identity is our struggle. Our identity is that addiction. Our identity is I drink far too much. That our identity is everything but what it should be, and that is child of God, man of God, woman of God, who happens to struggle with alcohol,
Yes.
Man of God who happens to struggle with pornography, man of God who has defects, character defects I'm working on that causes me to be angry, woman of God that struggles it with codependency and staying in these unhealthy relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
See, I don't like labels, never like, because your identity, especially, well, now your audience may be believers and non-believers, and that's cool. And no one's ever saying it's your choice, choose God or don't. Excuse me. But if you start identifying yourself as your struggle, you'll be in that struggle until, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. I never, but I was in the pit of hell and drug use and everything. I never called myself an addict or an alcoholic. Even then, you know, I was probably in denial and I didn't want to identify. I just didn't want to identify with it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on this
I
side,
wholeheartedly agree with that, because words are powerful, right? We talk about, all throughout the Bible, it talks about, the word, right? The word of God, you follow the words. The words are, we manifest from the words that we say, it's while in like, in raising children, you say you address the behavior and not the child. The child's not bad. The behavior is bad. And it's same with our health, right? We got to look at, are you identifying yourself as a healthy person? Maybe you have some bad habits or some things that you need to change. But I absolutely agree with that. I've got several of my clients who have gone through programs that supported them at their time. But part of the bridge and evolution that I've supported them with is that you are on the other side of that. You do not identify yourself as that, because when you say those words, what you say attracts to yourself, and you are not that. And so it's very important. I love that that is part of what you are about and what you're doing.
I feel so strongly about that, Diane. So strongly.
I'm with you.
Because, and that's just something it's just a pivot from standard vernacular or whatever you want to call it, or, oh, no, that's how you do it in recovery. No, it isn't. No, things are ever changing all the time. And I just don't believe in that. I tell people all the time, don't look for me in my past. I don't live there anymore. So if you're sober for 20 years and you're still calling yourself an alcoholic, why?
Right. I agree.
You're all you're saying is, oh, I'm an alcoholic, but I've been set free. I've been clean for 20 years. Why are you still identifying yourself of something you are no longer? But they take it on as a badge or something for life.
Right. Well, and it becomes a crutch at sometimes too. It's like, I love when people say the thing, hey, he's off the cross, get off the cross. Like, let's be in joy. Let's be into the next phase of who it is that we can be and not stay in that suffering, right? Because that suffering doesn't allow you to evolve.
Yeah. I mean, it'll keep you stuck. It'll keep you, and identity is everything. If you identify with he who set you free, or identify with the only one that can heal, restore, change, and fix you, then you are so far ahead, man. When you grasp that love, that forgiveness, that grace and mercy, you'll never go back to that old identity. You'll never take on that old identity, right? So I'm just big about that. I'm just, it's just a real pivot in our recovery to go from calling ourselves and labeling ourselves something that has so much stigma and negativity versus hope, encouragement, grace, mercy, future, purpose, mission. Big difference in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's talk about what are some of the skill sets that people are using to stay in that process of looking forward, of evolving into that. And you talk about having developing self-awareness and having like daily inventory. Let's talk about the importance of that and how that fits into the life plan.
in your experience, and certainly in mine, it's self-awareness is so overlooked. And it goes back to responsibility you mentioned a minute ago. Self-awareness is so a lot of times overlooked. There are good personality profile tests and all these other things we can take, and Myers-Briggs, and all these things, to find out, how am I, who am I, what am I? Am I an 8? Am I a CI? And that's cool. And that's cool for
They're
corporate or
indicators.
whatever. Yeah, they are. I love them. I love them. Kind of when I read them, I'm kind of like, really, I'm like that. Anyway, gosh, no wonder people. No, anyway, yeah, it's it's so interesting. But I really am a firm believer about self-awareness, and I stress that the Bible's all clear about that, by the way, too. That's a beautiful life manual talking about
Mm.
self-awareness. And it's not do's and don'ts and do's and don'ts and do's and don'ts. It's about life change, mind change, heart change, personality change, what have you. But once people enter into a recovery setting where it's safe and where they can trust, and when they find a good, healthy format to help them and accountability,
Right.
the whole purpose of it is to develop a self-awareness. And we all have blind spots.
Right.
We all have shortcomings and defects and things that we either are aware of to a degree or not aware of at all. So as we go through the practice of inventory, of really concentrating on the most important person, and that is you, and that is me, your listeners themselves, every day, how am I doing?
Mm.
Taking a real good inventory of how am I doing emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Yes.
How am I doing? If I'm depressed, why am I depressed? If I'm anxious, why am I anxious? If I'm fearful of something, why is that? Am I aware of the triggers and the warning signs that surround us everywhere? Those types of things. The most important thing we can ever do, is to be self-aware. And that is just a practice that I've myself personally, but our team, and then with those that we care for, it's all about developing a self-awareness, because oftentimes we're coming out of a false reality. We don't like ourselves. Some people are just, I hate my life. Some people are just, I can't stand who I am or what I've turned into.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, why? So let's ask ourselves some questions here. And that's the whole pivot. That's going from a place of I wear the mask because I don't feel good about myself, to taking it off, revealing who I am, taking responsibility and saying, it's my doing, my choices, my life. Therefore, I want to learn more about me.
Absolutely.
I'm beautifully and wonderfully made and fearfully made, wonderfully made, the Bible tells me. What does that mean to me? I matter to God.
Mm-hmm.
I matter to God. And I want to change my mind, my thinking. How do I do that? On a daily inventory, on a regular basis.
Right. Know thyself. Asking those questions are so deep. I don't know if you've read, Mark Victor Hansen and his wife, Crystal, created a book called Ask. And it has like lots of questions in there about asking yourself and asking God and asking your community. And it's a beautiful thing. And so I love you're talking about that thing around asking. And it's a muscle that people need to build, that whole asking. We talked in the beginning about, oh, no, I'm okay. But, asking for that help, it's what you're doing in your ministry. It's what, people who are there to help people and ask some of those deeper questions. And when you do that, you can have that pulse on where you are and what you're doing and how you can make that difference in your world. Speaking of difference, one of the things I love asking my guests is because I believe our home, it can be that haven that we create, how we live our life, and we feel differently in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our office. And so what's your favorite room in your home and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I happen to be in the sitting room of my bedroom. So ever since COVID, I had to go I have two offices, or three rather. And so with COVID, I had to bring everything in house. So I'm sitting overlooking our backyard. Actually, we have two horses, and I love watching them and looking out the back of the room. So I would have to say where I am right now, and that is our sitting room.
I love that so much. And one of the things I love to bring that awareness to people, because sometimes the simplest things are our home, our environment.
Yeah,
There's different levels of what we've created there, but, no matter how small or large it is, we can create these safe havens, this area that we can call home.
yes,
Some people create, spaces where they can be in prayer or
yeah,
meditation, or
prayer
they can
room.
have
Yeah,
these things, right? I grew up with a family that had stained glass windows in one of their prayer rooms in their home, and it was like almost this talk about a spiritual
wow,
experience. And so it's just beautiful, the things that people will create, and it's not so much about the things that are in there, it's how you feel. So you looking out and seeing the horses,
right,
right? It's
you're
the
right.
beauty that is all around us, and having that gratitude to do that. And so I so appreciate the resource of you and what you're doing and helping people move through recovery. How is it that people can stay in contact with you?
A number of different ways. My website, stophiding.starthealingbook.com. My other website is craigdbrown.com. And then my email is craig@craigdbrown.com. Yeah, I welcome any of your listeners that have a comment or want to reach out. More than happy to engage with them. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Well, and finally, how are you being a force for good in the world?
I've taken my pit of hell experience. I've taken every bit of my pain, shame, guilt, everything I am today, excuse me, as a result of my deepest pain, everything. And I've just used my brokenness and everything that I've been through in my life to try to make a difference in someone else's life by sharing, empathizing, and knowing what I've been through and using it as a force for good to help that other person either avoid the pit of hell, or if they're in the midst of that pit of hell, help them find a way out by offering, just unconditional love, support, empathy, care, and just being there for them and being an active listener for them. Again, people need more people in their life that'll listen. And I'm not going to fix anybody or try to do any of that. There's only one that could do that. And we serve him through our testimony and giving back to people. So that's essentially what I do and what I have been doing for the last 22 years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being that listener and being for those people in need, and to have a safe haven for them to go to. And we'll have all those links in the show notes for that. So many blessings to you, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Diane.
Absolutely. And to all of our listeners, thank you for being here. It's you that we're here to serve, and for you to share this kind of message, that there is hope for people, that there is support for them. There are people that they just need to ask and reach out. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're having a challenging time, pull over, give yourself that moment. Ask, right? Ask God, ask the people who are there to reach out to you, get the resources, get Craig's book, be able to have those things at your fingertips. So when things are challenging, that you are taking that 100% responsibility, that you are at choice with the experience that you have in your life. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.